Okay, let's get started on chapter 2. This is our first concept, solving one-step equations. So we're going to start off a little simple here, and obviously they'll get more difficult as we go. Before we can jump right into things, we have a little bit of vocabulary here. And this is really going to get us thinking about what the difference is from chapter 1 to chapter 2. So up until now, we have been doing something called simplifying. Okay, so this is a term that you should be pretty familiar with by now. And in math, we simplify expressions. So what's an expression? You guys also should know this by now. An expression could be something like 2 times 1 plus 3x, okay? Now to solve this expression, we would use our distributive property and distribute our 2 in for each term that's inside of our parentheses. And when you do that, you get 2 plus 6x, okay? What's one thing that you notice about expressions? Well, something that they don't have is no equal sign. All right. So expressions have no equal sign. Contrast to that, we have something called equations. Now, an equation will have an equal sign, and you're going to know that because the word equal is part of the word equation. So in math, we solve equations. Okay, so when you don't have an equal sign, when it's just an expression, you can't solve it. The best you can do is simplify it. But when we have equations, which have equal signs, we would be solving them. So solving for some sort of variable. So if I have 2x plus 3 equals 9, okay, you're going to notice that now I have this equal sign. Okay, now to solve this, we're going to have to figure out a way that we can get this variable by itself. You're going to be solving for this variable, okay? So what do you notice? An equal sign. Now I'm not actually going to solve this example because we're going to get into the steps as we go on, but I'm just showing you the fact or the difference between these two things, all right? So number 1, a blank is a set of expressions that has a blank dividing it into 2 sides. All right, an equation is a set of expressions that has an equal sign which divides it into 2 sides. So looking back up here real quick in the box, this is an equation, and this equal sign on one half of it, we have an expression, right? Looks like this: no equal sign, number, operation, variable. Number, variable, operation, same thing, right? So on each side of the equal sign, we've got an expression here, and over on this side of the equal sign, let me put 2 fingers so that it hides all of it, we have another expression, all right? Remember I told you expressions don't necessarily have to have a variable, all right? So that equal sign divides into 2 sides with an expression on each side, all right? Solving an equation means getting the variable alone on one side. Whoops, one side. Hopefully you write a little bit smaller than I do. I didn't leave a lot of room there. Number 3. It doesn't matter if the variable is on the left side or the right side. It really doesn't matter. You just pick a side and you move all of your terms that have a variable to that side. Doesn't matter if it's left, doesn't matter if it's right. You're going to come out with the same answer, okay? Right or left side. To solve an equation, identify the operation and undo it using blank, okay? Now, before I fill in this blank, I'm going to look down at my chart here. These kind of go together. So we know our basic operations so far: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Well, for each operation, there is something called an opposite operation, or this is also called inverse operation. I personally like to say inverse, so you're going to hear me use the word inverse instead of opposite. It really is preference. They mean the same thing. Some teachers say opposite, some teachers say inverse. So I really want you to get used to inverse operation. Operation. Okay? The reason I put opposite, though, in my chart is because a lot of people don't understand that the word inverse means opposite, so I just wanted you to be able to make that connection. So the opposite of adding is going to be to subtract. The opposite of subtract is going to be to add. The opposite of multiply is going to be to divide. And the opposite of divide is going to be multiply. So what this means is when we need to undo an operation, if we have something like plus 2 and we want to move it to the other side of our equation, then we need to do the inverse and subtract that 2. All right? One thing before we can get started, my last little bullet point is that you must be fair. Okay? What I mean by fair is if you do something to the left side or the right side, it really doesn't matter. You must do the same thing to the right side and vice versa. All right. So these can be flip-flopped. All right. So like the example I just said, if we have plus 2 and we need to move it to the other side, we need to subtract 2 from the left and the right. You have to be fair. And what I tell my students is to think about it like a scale. Okay. If you have a scale that is completely level, completely equal, so you have a scale with 2 things on each side that weigh the same. Okay. If I want to make sure that that scale stays balanced or stays equal, if I'm going to add a half a pound to the right side's going to go down and it's not going to be level anymore. In order to keep it level, I'd also have to add a half pound to the other side, and then it'll stay equal. So think about it that way. In order for your equation to stay equal, you have to be fair and do the same thing to both sides. Okay? Let's look at some examples because this video is getting pretty long. I'm going to try to get through these real fast for you guys. Okay, solve each equation. Now, the best thing that's going to help you solve equations is when you see the equal sign, your first step should be to create kind of like a division, not a division, I don't want you to confuse you. Basically, I want you to separate the 2 sides using the equal sign. So draw a partition, okay, like a partition between the 2 sides. Right? So what we need to do is solve for this variable. That's what we're trying to figure out. So we have negative 14 right next to a variable. We all know by now that this means multiplication. So how can we undo that negative 14, this multiplication here? How can we get that to the other side? Well, we just talked about our inverse operations. The inverse operation of multiply is to divide. So let's divide this negative 14 over to the other side. So we're going to have 182 divided by negative 14. All right. Now on the left, when I divide the negative 14, what this means is negative 14 divided by negative 14. Anything divided by itself just gives you 1. So all you have left is your x, your 1x, all right? Equals, and then on the right side, do the math, and you get negative 13. So our answer is x is negative 13, okay? Looking at number 3, I'm just going to go down the odds. Again, divide it into 2 halves. We have on the left side, we have a 6. On the right side, x minus 2. There's subtraction. I'm sorry, did I say 2? 12. Subtraction of 12. So our inverse operation, inverse of subtract, is to add. So we need to add 12. And remember, you must be fair. You must do the same thing to both sides. All right. Now on the right, negative 12 plus 12. Those even each other out. That's 0 at this point. So they're gone, they cancel. And all that's left on the right is x. And then on the left, 6 plus 12 is 18. So x is 18. This is what I said before. It doesn't matter if your variable is on the left, the right, it really doesn't matter. It's still gonna be a solution, okay? Number 5, This one is set up as division, so we need to figure out our inverse operation of division. Well, we should know that that's multiplication. So this is r divided by 18. We need to multiply this by 18 to get it out of there. So if we multiply this entire fraction by 18, and remember, if you're going to do it to that side, you got to do it to the right side. They're gone on this side. You're left with r. Okay? And then you have 18 times 4 is 72, and don't forget your negative. All right, 3 more. Quickly, quickly. N minus 9 equals 3. I'm just going to go ahead and go all the way down to my next couple problems and draw my lines in. Okay, number 7, n minus 9 equals 3. I need to get the 9 over to the right side. So I'm going to do the inverse operation and add 9. On the left side, it's gone. And all I'm left with is n equals 12. Number 9, negative 4 times x equals negative 60. This is multiplication, so I need to inverse operation, divide out that negative 4. Okay, so now we have 60, negative 60 divided by negative 4, and 2 negatives are going to make a positive, so this is x equals positive 15. Last one here, again, subtract. So we have minus 11. We need to inverse add 11. On the left side, they're gone. And we're left with v equals negative 20 plus 11 is going to be negative 8. All right. The evens are for you to do, and make sure that you remember to watch your video for section 2 over the long weekend. Thank you.